to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today I have a photograph of a local business. I took this photo probably a few months ago. Went for a bike ride and just had my digital camera around my neck, and I would just like pick it up one-handed and snap some photos of local scenes, and then go back and go back and just see if anything was worthwhile to look at and see if it was a decent composition, if it had good information on it for me to paint from. That seems to be my way to go about photos, where I'll just snap a whole bunch and then kind of check through it and see what's taking place. So this is last night I did a commission piece. It was of a local house, and so I talked to the lady today. She said she really liked it and all that, so I'll sign it and get it to her and whatnot, and hopefully I'll have a nice place in her house and she'll enjoy it. But the feedback that I gotten on my Facebook page, and sharing it and it being a local scene, I had gotten a lot of feedback. And I usually paint landscapes, and I wonder if after a while people that aren't artists and aren't following video after video might just see it kind of as a repetition, as opposed to y'all watching along and you see that we have different experiments, different things that we're trying to approach and whatnot. So I think it was probably refreshing for a lot of the people, and also whenever you paint local scenes, people really love that. So that's something you want to kind of keep in mind as an artist. You're going to get requests for local scenes, regardless of how well or how bad you paint other things. That they'll want that. They'll want the local church. They'll want their personal building, and they'll want maybe their business or a barn or something like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's sentimental value for people, but it does kind of put you in a situation where you're painting specific things that maybe you are not adept at. For me, like I said, I do landscapes, but the thing that's often requested is local buildings. So that being said, I knew I had a photo of this. This is Richard's seafood patio. It wasn't requested or anything like that. I was just kind of going through my pictures and seeing what I had building wise that I could paint from. Kind of just keep the momentum going, keep myself in the aspect of just trying buildings, just adding that to my repertoire. The building that I had done last night, I sent the picture to a wonderful lady who had commissioned me back in, let's say, September of last year, to do some paintings of her house as gifts for her husband. And she was very supportive of my work. Very fantastic lady, an art teacher, and her father was an art professor and all that. So that was really cool. And so I showed her what I had done with a house, and the house was actually across the river from where she lived and the house that I painted for her. So I think it was cool just seeing the progression and comparison of how it was a few months ago. Anywho, all that being said, here is the barn. It's not really a barn. It's an indoor restaurant. And I don't think I've ever been to this one. It is right around the corner. It's for me. But like I said, being a school teacher, going out to eat isn't really... I mean, yeah, we do go out to eat, but seafood's a little expensive, for me on my salary, unless it's like all you can eat sushi or something like that, because I'm a big guy. I eat a lot. So with these, I can tell you what I know about these. This is my dad's really good friend, owns a seafood place in town as well. And I've been in there, and I've been in the back and whatnot. And mainly, there's the seating area, and then there's a separate area that's usually connected to it, I think, that will be kind of the walk-in freezer for all their cases of, you know, adult beverages, beer and all that. And if they have any seafood that's, you know, frozen and packaged, etc. Then there's usually a separate area where they'll have their big boilers going. And my dad's friend's place is a crawfish place, and you know, so they have like 3 or 4 boilers going like just nonstop, and it's I think they call it the chaff of you know, jalapenos and stuff like that. All that stuff is in the air because they use a lot of seasoning and spice within crawfish boils. You know, so like you walk back there and you just, your sinuses, everything just start burning immensely. It's quite a bit. So that's kind of like just talking about the structure, and like I said, I'm assuming that the 3 buildings in this kind of follow suit with that. This area, I believe, flooded in 2016. I'll have to ask about that, but this is like right alongside the Vermilion River, and the Vermilion River had flooded quite badly in 2016. A lot of southern Louisiana flooded in 2016. It was pretty bad. The house that I rent did not flood, but the water came up to the 2 street corners, and everything was you know, flooded around there. And behind my house, a block or 2 was all flooded, but I was able to kind of go for walks and kind of weave in and out of these different regions. It was very weird. It was very surreal when that happened. So I'm gonna go with just a basic palette with this one. I'll talk through it. We'll have a light red oxide, alizarin crimson, burnt umber, burnt sienna, raw sienna, lemon yellow, Payne's gray, and ultramarine, and sap green. So it's the Ron Ranson palette plus sap green, mainly because of the trees and whatnot. Last night's painting, I did rely on gouache in order to add some depth and interest to the trees, as well as bring out some of the whites in the building. I didn't draw it first yesterday, and I didn't draw this one first yesterday. The approach that I took, now I'm finally painting. I'm sorry, guys. Nobody commented or anything like that. I'm just saying that now I'm finally getting into it. Where was I? Okay. Yeah, I didn't draw anything yesterday. What I had done, my approach was wet and wet once again, like usual, and then get that softness for the sky and whatnot, and then build up and erase to get the building into perspective that I wanted, and then from there do a dry off and then go in with a more detailed brush. And it's nice because this one isn't as a commission, so I can not worry too much about it. That's the one thing about getting commission. It's there's a little element of stress with it. So on top of it being a building, something that I don't practice every day, they yeah. So it's just like a different than the normal pattern that I do, and whatnot. So there's just differences that pop out. Anyway, so I'm just taking ultramarine, putting it in the sky. This was a nice day. That's why I went for a bike ride on this one. If you want, you can take cerulean blue and put that in the sky for a nice blue day. I think that's all I need. Bring it down kind of low, and I'm going to really accentuate the trees around this building. But let's get a little raw sienna and look at how we're going to do the bottom of this building. Start like kind of getting a shape in for it. So the shape, it recedes up back. We'll put one side here, one side here. So this is kind of the constraints that I'm working within. We do have an overhang that comes to the edge, so I'm gonna put it back to about this spot and about here. This is what I was talking to my buddy who is studying in Taiwan right now. This juts forward. I'm not sure exactly what he's studying. I know he's going to school there, but you know, he is also drawing, sketching, learning watercolors, and wanting to do kind of quick line portraitures of people. And he had done one last night from a photograph, and he had commented that he was having difficulty because there was no grid lines to work with. And I think, you know, sketching things in, if you want to sketch things in, work with grid lines, that's fine. You know, that's a very viable method. A lot of artists that, first of all, artists that are, I can't even hold a candle to, that's how they will approach it. You know, they'll do grid lines and whatnot. But what I told them was the way I had learned figure painting was to kind of mark the ends and see everything in relation to it and push things around. Granted, he's working with a ink pen and trying to do the line drawing, so it might be a little bit difficult. But here I am mapping out the sides, mapping out that length, looking at that vertical, just kind of getting everything into position. So I'm just using that same concept of putting in the perspective in that fashion. For figure drawing, I think it was 8 circles. There you'd get the head would be a circle, and you'd create that from there. Or I'd mark the top of the head, the bottom of the foot, and then I'd hold the brush or the pen or whatever up to the model in this fashion and kind of measure and compare it to different shapes. Like if the head was this long and it was the same width as the shoulders, it would then correspond to my drawings. Also used it for angles and whatnot. It's a technique that I haven't used in a long time, but it was a invaluable technique, using your brush or pen or what have you as a tool like that. This is that tree back here. Payne's gray. I should mix a little lemon yellow in it just to get the green. It's going to come to about here. And this is going to create counter change with the roof itself. So we'll wind up having the dark background, and that'll create the shape of the roof. This is back horizon line, and I'll play around with those more. Right now it's very vibrant. I didn't really mix my colors that much, but I'm trying to stay looser with this one than the one last night. For buildings, paintings, and whatnot, an invaluable source are videos by, oh, I said the word whatnot. Lois Davidson was teasing me the other day with my videos, saying she was going to make a drinking game out of every time I said whatnot. And then she said she realized she would get like really messed up. So now I'm going to notice that. Anyway, Rick has invaluable tutorials on buildings and barns, and that's what I'd started out with when I had started learning, watching him and watching Stephen Cronin and David Usher. Stephen Cronin, David Usher, Fast and Loose, Hake Brush. Rick is a little bit more methodical. He draws in his subject matter beforehand. He also utilizes masking fluid. I used masking fluid a lot in the beginning, but it added to the time that I'd spent on the painting, where I like the Fast and Loose, and whenever we did not have this whole coronavirus thing going on, I was, teaching, and then after teaching, coaching 3 days a week, and then tutoring after that. So there'd be days I'd leave the house at 6:30 and get home at 7:30 at night. So I had to paint fast and loose, and I had to learn that style in order to be able to paint in that half hour, 1 hour window at night. Also, personally, I'm somebody who paints, I believe the term's alla prima, where I get it all done in one shot. Whether it's an oil painting or a drawing or anything, I cannot come back to it. I have to get it done then and there. In college, we did come back to it. We would spend 3 hours one day and then 3 hours the next day working on it. This is that, just shaping out this barn. So this comes up, recedes back, then it recedes down. So we'll work on that. That's that background. The overhang comes off. We have the front of the building. Okay, so you see how I kind of left this negative space here for where I want to put this structure in. And what I was referring to is that yesterday I pretty much wiped out and erased to create these contours. Drawing or studying a subject beforehand would be definitely valuable to get the perspective down. One thing that I was telling, and I referring back to the guy in Taiwan that I was telling you all about, is that, this is how I did mine, and I told him the technique we had learned in college of just like putting the different ends of figures in place. But I had also said, granted, and this is something that I had read, you want to do figure studies because figure studies is the only place where like proportion is like super, super, super duper important. Meaning, if you take a tree, and this is a great example that I had read, where if you have a tree and you paint, I don't know, a branch and then another branch, and the branch is off by a couple inches, couple of feet, it really doesn't matter. I mean, trees are very organic and flowing. But if you're painting a person, you better make sure those arms aren't off. Make sure they're in perspective. So that's why figure painting and learning from drawing figures is invaluable to an artist. And then if you're like a draftsman or a draftsman, then you really need to have perspective in place. Size and relationship. So this is how I'm going to build up this counter change taking place. So I could leave this wet and I can start putting in onto the inside of this building. Reasons I'm doing that is for brevity, shortness. I don't want to spend hours upon hours on this painting. I haven't eaten yet today, so. And yesterday I started doing like kind of body weight exercises at home, which was nice, and I'm feeling good from it. I just I need to do that again today. I need to remain consistent with that. So I'm just taking a mixture of raw sienna, burnt sienna, and ultramarine. Very good combination for buildings. This is something that I learned again from the gentleman Rick that I refer to, and he has a lot of free videos. He also has coursework that you could sign up for and pay, like, and I think it's like super legit courses. I haven't done it, but I've heard good feedback and seen results from some of it. I think he also travels and puts on the seminars type things, but I've never been to one of those either. My friend Miss Margaret was supposed to, but it had gotten closed, unfortunately, due to the current situation in the world. And so I think she was pretty devastated. I know she was really looking forward to it, but a lot of things have been getting canceled because of that. What's been happening? Anyway, so check him out on YouTube, and I guess here's a good time for me to give my regular spiel of, hey guys, I created a Patreon account, and I would love for you to consider joining me. The link is down below. I have 2 simple tiers. There is a $3 tier and a $5 tier. Essentially, the money just helps me pay for more art supplies. And for the $5 tier, I try to provide exclusive content for patrons. If you are unable to sign up or just don't want to, that is totally fine. I'm not going to hold it against you. I completely understand. But I would love for you to continue watching my videos. I have a whole bunch of the free ones on YouTube. And at the end of the day, my goal is just to build up this channel, have people paint and experiment, follow along, ask questions, etc. So that's my spiel. I also have the Etsy link down below. I usually put my paintings up there. I just have not put too much up recently, mainly due to there's just the listing fees and not many people are purchasing paintings at the moment. So yeah, there's that. Okay, so I think my spiel's good. Good. Now, I'm just taking, this is a number 4 rigger that I have. This has been, it got used today and yesterday. It is a little helpful with laying down a little bit more paint than the hake itself. I'm just using it to kind of clean up these lines. It's going to come up, and it comes back and down. This comes up higher than this peak back here. This one is actually more of a straight line. Then we have a cool telephone pole back here that I'll put in at the end. I'll put in some telephone wires. Okay. Get a little bit more green on here into these trees and the grass. One thing, a few other things that you can do. You could trace out and draw out the buildings if you'd like to do that. I gotta tone the screen down. There we go. I'll put in tree trunks in a bit later on. Where was I? Okay. So you can draw in the buildings if you want. You can masking fluid them out. You can draw them in and then just wet the area around them, and then do your wet and wet, and you won't have that kind of overlap of fuzziness. There's a lot of different approaches that you can do. You don't even have to do the wet and wet. This is just the way I paint, and no one is more right or wrong with their painting style. Don't let anybody ever tell you that. Just have fun. One of the things that's kind of an issue that it's hard to convey properly because people get offended by it is that our teachers will give sets of rules, and you kind of, a lot of people will balk against the art teacher's rules, and kind of rightfully so. However, what you want to keep in mind, and this is what the art teacher doesn't seem to keep in mind and what the student doesn't seem to keep in mind, is that the rules are just guidelines. If the art teacher doesn't want you to use black, the reason they're doing that is to get you to explore mixing other colors into it, getting darks as opposed to using black, which is a perfectly great way of teaching. It shows you how to utilize your palettes and get different tonal values. However, the student and the teacher don't realize, or it's not conveyed, that exploration can take place later on down the line. Explore with different pigment compositions. Explore with different things, lights and darks. Try black on your palette. You may not like it, but don't think that it's a steadfast rule. But also always be respectful of whoever you're taking classes from and all that. I don't teach art. I'm certified for it. But if I had said something like, okay, class, today we're just using ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. The whole point of that is to mix the grays, go back and forth between warm and cool, etc. So a restriction is put in place, but a restriction is put in place in order to teach what's taking place, So that's what you want to keep in mind. Okay. So now wet and wet, you could have a lot of fun. You could just start playing, putting in tones, start shaping things up. We will do a dry off in a moment. And we'll see. But while we have this wet and wet taking place, they have their sign right here, so I'm just going to lift up back to white if I can. I think I was telling y'all, this is flatter perspective wise right here, so this guy comes up higher. He goes back. This one goes back. Goes back. Comes right here. I might wind up using some gouache to bring some whites back in. But for the most part, here's where we stand. Bring that in so I can have a little overhang right there. And it comes forward. And once again, wet and wet, I like to put it along the edge of a building, just like along the edge of a tree, the base of it, to kind of ground it. So hooking in the back with that background right here, so the lawn goes up and then cuts in. That, along with the grounding and the counterchange, the dark trees behind it, help ground this and place it in. So we can continue working wet and wet. However, it may be time for us to start drying off and putting other things in. I'll do a little bit of more darkness right here. This extends back. This is a wall right here. So I really need to emphasize how this is jutting out in front. Then we have another jut out from this one. We have a corner right here. You can see from pulling up and dabbing and all that I pulled a lot of moisture out of that area. So it's a little dark right here. This is definitely darker in value. Meaning that this barn-like door, this bay door, is even darker. Dark underhang. This top half is darker. And it bends back. Okay, so if you're watching, if you have earbuds on, be careful. I'm going to turn on the blow dryer. So I'm going to come back with the hake, and I'm going to mix a grain. Let's see what we can get. Raw sienna and sap green. So I'm going to add the textured tree back here. Mix a little Payne's gray into it, darken it up some. And I can get it wetter and more chiseled to now put in, and don't be afraid to use your hand to chisel the brush to put in these contours. Okay, right there and right here. Then I can texture it back up. This goes right along here, and texture it back up. Goes right along here, comes down below, make the overhang, then texture it back up. Now within this, I do need variety, so here's some lemon yellow. So it's just not one just black mass in the back. And I'm going to take the rigger with a dark. So when I say dark, I usually take a burnt umber, ultramarine, Payne's gray, just mix that all together. And that is for this tree structure back here. Hopefully I'm not making them too far over because the mat would cover them up. And you see one or more back here, but I think I want to do that. I want to ground them as well. And we can texture over him. Okay, so let's do the grass in the front, lemon yellow, which somehow I keep on getting a whole bunch out of this little tube. Let's see if I can get any more. Obviously I'm going to have to clean through these. The cats snuck in and knocked over everything yesterday, so I'll get some more lemon yellow. It's like a tube of toothpaste. And I don't know how I keep on getting some out still every time. So let's grab lemon yellow. I could also use the sap green, but just to brighten this up, just cheer it up a little bit. And for dry brushing grass effects. Okay, let's see where else we're at with this. So we have wet on top and bottom, but I think at this point we won't have too much mixing between it. There's my tube of lemon yellow. And then we'll go back into the building. There we go, that's what I wanted, just that nice bright lemon yellow. We actually have like a perfect black tree line right here because a drive-through goes alongside. This will have to be lowered. Okay. Now clean the green off, lemon yellow off of our hake. Move that green out there. Burnt sienna and ultramarine for our gray. So using the hake to get textured. bay door right in here. Texture. This guy's the whiter, but more gray there. Okay, now switching to the rigger. This dark recession, dark on the edge to ground. Dark along the edge to ground. Okay. Okay, now let's look at this right here. We're going to clean up this edge like that. Okay. Clean up this edge.
Go and pick up mail from the border pharmacy of my parents.
Okay. You coming right back, or?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so this is just using our colors just to strengthen those. Mixing green again. To create this. So it's kind of just like pushing back and forth to get those edges for me. And then texture it up so it blends in. The background trees. All right, now going back to our gray. Just building up the darks. Now, you could use a dry brush effect, use the side of it to get some texture. Comes here. I'm gonna have to use white gouache on that roof, I think. Right here. Looks like there's a big old air vent in this spot. Here is that bay that I told you about. Okay. underhang, underhang, under this. Texture, little texture. Okay. Now, I do have a separate palette that I use for the gouache. It's just this little tray, and we can use the white gouache and the buff Titan buff. Those two seem to work pretty well in tandem. I think it's dry up here. I could sit it. So the white gouache is a little bit more opaque than the buff Titan, and the buff Titan is a little bit on the creamier side of color. But those two will be fun, I think, with this. I found that they were very helpful with yesterday's painting. So I put them on separate because they can spread on the palette and start messing with colors that are around it. So try to grab some clean water. Okay, here's white. Actually, the areas around it are wet, so I'm gonna have to dry off real quick. Okay, so I'm using this to essentially crisp up the edges. I don't think I want to put it in as a perfect plane. I want some variation there. Now this guy is grayer, so I'm going to use the buff Titan, but I will come back over it with probably a grayer color. His roof, it extends back. And then a little more of an angle. It pops back here. This last guy's roof is like super white. That's why I tried leaving a lot of white of the paper there. Okay. He's more gray down here, but I'm kind of exaggerating that light in order to get an idea of a direction for where the sun's coming from. This guy's white. Texture white over this one. here's the sign, which I'll just start putting in. I'm not going to write any letters in. I don't even know if I'm going to put letters in. It might just be kind of just squiggles. Then we have the white of the overhang. Okay, so that started bringing things out some. Let's create here. It's painted up to a certain point where it's dark above and then light down below. Really not many defining features on this this building. I could put in vertical lines for texture. I could also put them in and then spray it. Could also put it in where it's wet in that area and put those vertical lines, and that'll disperse them. I'm trying to do vertical and horizontal type strokes, or at least plane strokes where you go back into the picture plane to kind of give shape to these structures. We do have a power pole that comes back up here, which I'm going to go over on top of with a brown after this dries. So that's one of the uses of gouache. They call it body color, so I could put it in that fashion and then go over it. Okay. So let's go back to our building. Go back to our grays. Start darkening points. This, I need to change perspective. It needs to come up because it's receding back that way. There's actually a little door right here. I'm gonna grab some light red. So this is the first time pulling light red into this painting. Light red oxide. Get that edge along the gravel road. get the gray for the gravel. And I could bring that gray back here. Okay. So you can go back in with the Buff Titan or the gouache and get a little bit more of those highlights. Get a little bit more crisp on the top of this guy. A little bit whiter on that. We have a sign down here as well. Okay. Before we play with another dry off, let's get kind of a green. More Payne's gray than green, to be honest. Just trying to get this to sit better in the picture plane. I think I have to take the liberty and get a little bit of shadow here. Light's coming this way, but it's going to catch right there. Crisp that edge up. All right, let's do a quick dry off. Now, power pole, this is burnt umber on top of white gouache. This is Payne's gray. There's a lot of wires in this picture. I am going to omit a decent amount of them, but I think I give myself the artistic liberty of having a few in there. In fact, I'm going to turn this little blob into a bird. Well, actually, no, that's not working for me. erase that some. Usually I wouldn't worry that much if it's like dead center. Alright, one last go around this building. Did we need to dry? I don't think so. And then we'll put in the sign. Also have posts in the front. Help those sit in place. Darken this. A little bit of light red. This roof has a little bit of light red in it. Let's dry off. We'll do some script. Okay, just hitting this power pole again. Okay, the bottom sign has some stuff, so I'm going to kind of squiggle in as if there's writing there. Accentuate this post, accentuate the posts. I'm just taking darks. Accentuating that corrugated type shape of the steel roof. Moving over this guy. Here is a AC unit, which I'm going to draw in more as a box than anything else. Grass. Okay, this guy's doing pretty decent. Again, just dry brush a little bit more texture. Darken. Shadow, shadow, get that corrugated effect. This is to put this in place better. And this is a little more stuff just to put in place. I'm going to take a light red for the words on here. It's too wet. Dry paper towel. Seafood patio. That has some numbers. Okay. White gouache. There's a drain that comes down, pipe that goes out. Okay. Sap green. Light red, raw sienna for like a terracotta type color. Let's see, I mean, I think could be pretty much done at this point. I could play around with this lettering a little bit more, make it a little bit more. Put this dark up in here. Alright, let's stand up and take a look. I think we should probably call this one done. Let me dry this off and I'll sign it. We'll put a mat over it, see what it looks like. Alright. Mat. Okay, looks good. Everything seemed to work out well in my location. Let me sign it, and I'll pull the camera off and show you the full picture. Okay, so this is from a photograph of Richard's Seafood Patio. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll talk to you all soon. Have a great day. Bye. Oh, did I end it?